All right, now we're getting to the heavy hitters, the top two extinct Disney attractions. Starting with number two, the Universe of Energy at Epcot. This is one of the attractions which I really understand why it closed down. It was not really up to date. A lot of the animatronics were still working, but it was from when Epcot first opened in the 80s, which is pretty amazing for a pavilion long as running as that is. Even though I understand why it closed, I still had a bit of a soft spot for it. It was one of the first original attractions at Epcot, and it had that element of learning to it. That's what made Epcot stand out among the other Disney parks. You actually learned something, and not in a boring kind of way. You see, when it originally opened, it was a little different than what it was when it closed. It started with a pre-show about 8 minutes long talking about different forms of energy. And the audience members would enter this big theater where they come up to these very big moving, I forget what they're called, these these ride vehicles, which were pretty huge, taking up the whole theater. They would turn 180 degrees all over the place, and they were guided in the floor by guided wires, which was actually pretty cool. It could house a lot of people. You'd watch a 4-minute film talking about the beginnings of fossil fuels and life on Earth, and it would take you through a giant diorama of the dinosaurs, which was actually pretty cool once you saw it. There were like a bunch of brontosaurus, or apatosaurus, I should say, and it even emitted like some kind of swampy smell to it when you got in there. The animatronics were still pretty good. They didn't really move as fluidly as more recent animatronics at Disney World, but they were still pretty interesting and pretty lifelike, almost like walking through a museum or something. It had a very interesting feel to it. And you'd see all kinds of dinosaurs. You even see a giant dragonfly, giant centipedes, even a Dimetrodon, I think. One of the most memorable animatronics in the diorama part was the Stegosaurus fighting the Allosaurus, which the last time I saw it in 2017, I believe, the Stegosaurus looked pretty bad. Like, under its neck, it looked like a piece of its skin was, like, cut. I'm actually surprised they didn't really change that much. And it was fighting an Allosaurus. It kind of reminded me of Fantasia, that scene of Rite of Spring where the dinosaurs lived and how, they fought each other and everything. And the other memorable animatronic was the giant plesiosaur, which would rise out from the water and be like, roaring at guests. Unfortunately, parts of it stopped working in 2014, which I'll get to in a moment, and it was taken down, so people didn't really get to see that. And then it ended with another 8-minute film talking about the future of energy. Now, in 1996, it got a big revamp with Ellen's Energy Adventure, where comedian Ellen DeGeneres would talk about being a spokesperson for energy. And along with Bill Nye, the science guy, he teaches her about energy. And it was kind of strange. Like, she'd have a dream about energy going up against Jamie Lee Curtis and not knowing anything about energy. And they'd go on this adventure through time where he takes her through the diorama, and there was actually an Ellen animatronic, which was fighting off the plesiosaur with a big stick, which was kind of funny then, but in 2014, her animatronic stopped working, and they got rid of that and the plesiosaur, and they replaced it with the pteranodons. Now, it kind of took out the magic of the scene, like, now it just looks like, a bunch of, then it looked like a bunch of, pterosaurs, and you just hear her voice all throughout the ride. And then it ended with another big 8-minute film about Bill Nye talking about the future of energy, like solar, gas, wind, nuclear. And then it ended with her going back to her dream in Jeopardy, with her winning. It was Ellen's Energy Adventure. It had its own, funny, awkward charm to it, which was kind of entertaining and a good time waster. The other interesting thing about this ride was it was 45 minutes long. That's probably the longest attraction anybody has ever been on. And it was a pretty good time waster, you know? It had, I mean, it wasn't great or everything, but it was still pretty nice. And again, I had a soft spot for it. And, you know, it's kind of disappointing seeing it gone. I am looking forward to the new Guardians of the Galaxy attraction, but it's still kind of sad because it's kind of signifying that Epcot is losing its educational approach, which makes it stand out. It's focusing a little too much on thrill rides. Don't get me wrong, I love thrill rides, but I still liked, you know, what Epcot stood for. What do you guys think? Did you like Universe of Energy? Have you rode on the original attraction before it turned into Ellen's Energy Adventure? Were you sad to see it go? Or how about this? Were you guys on the last ride ever when it broke down and you got to get up close with the dinosaurs? Leave it in the comments below and get ready for number one tomorrow. You don't want to miss it.